You're listening to Gay News.
The latest news from the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender and queer community. And now your host, Brandon CARMODY.
You're listening to Gay News. Today is July 14th, 2015. I'm Brandon CARMODY. We want to welcome our listeners in the United States and around the world. Here's your top LGBTQ headlines for July 14th. In our first story today, the National Committee of the Boy Scouts of America on Monday unanimously approved a resolution allowing openly gay and bisexual adults to serve as employees and volunteers. If ratified by the BSA's governing body on July 27th, the national ban would end immediately and allow previously removed leaders to reapply for their positions. It would also prohibit regional governing councils or non-troop entities such as Boy Scout camps from discriminating against employees and volunteers based on their sexual orientation. But the change in policy would still allow each individual troop or unit to determine its own policy regarding the eligibility of openly gay or bisexual scoutmasters or other adult leaders. Zach Walls, an Eagle Scout and the executive director of Scouts for Equality, said in a statement that he hopes this ends the decades-old ban on gay leaders and parents like his two moms. For decades, the Boy Scouts of America's ban on gay adults has stood as a towering example of explicit institutional homophobia in one of America's most important and recognizable civic organizations, Walls stated. While this policy change is not perfect, BSA's religious chartering partners will be allowed to continue to discriminate against gay adults. It is difficult to overstate the importance of today's announcement. In May, Boy Scouts of America President Robert Gates had signaled the change when he said that the organization could no longer ban openly gay adults. Gates, a former U.S. Secretary of Defense, had said at the BSA's annual meeting in Atlanta, "I must speak as plainly and bluntly to you as I spoke to the presidents when I was Director of CIA and Secretary of Defense. We must deal with the world as it is, not as we might wish it to be. The status quo in our movement's membership standards cannot be sustained." The BSA decided to finally end its ban on openly gay scouts in 2013, but the ban continued once a scout reached the age of 18 and applied to adult leaders and employees of the organization. Gates had said that moving forward they cannot ignore the social and political changes taking place in our country, changes taking place at a pace over this past year no one anticipated. He pointed to the then-pending U.S. Supreme Court gay marriage cases that have since decided the issue for the nation and to the furious debates in Indiana and Arkansas earlier this year where religious freedom bills sought to make it legal for private businesses to discriminate against LGBTI people. In our next story today, transgender people will, for the first time, be allowed to serve openly in the U.S. military under a plan currently being finalized by the Pentagon. U.S. Secretary of Defense Ash Carter announced Monday that under the plan, transgender military personnel could begin serving openly early next year. It also acknowledges that there are already thousands of trans people essentially serving silent. Carter said in a statement that over the next 6 months, a working group will study the policy and readiness implications of welcoming transgender persons to serve openly. At my direction, the working group will start with the presumption that the transgender persons can serve openly without adverse impact on military effectiveness and readiness, unless and except where objective, practical impediments are identified, he stated. Carter added, "I am directing that decision authority in all administrative discharges for those diagnosed with gender dysphoria or who identify themselves as transgender be elevated to the Undersecretary Brad Carson, who will make determinations on all potential separations." The American Military Partner Association, which has been among those pushing for an end to the ban, cheered the turn of events, which comes nearly 3 years since the military officially ended the ban on gays, lesbians, and bisexuals serving openly. "We are thrilled with Secretary Carter's announcement that the Department of Defense is finally taking steps to lift the ban on transgender military service," said AMPA President Ashley Broadway Mack. "All qualified Americans should be able to serve our great nation regardless of their gender identity. Lifting the ban will dramatically improve the lives of our transgender service members and their families by allowing them to serve authentically." In March, AMPA launched a joint report with the Transgender American Veterans Association highlighting the harm the regulations have inflicted on military families. The report had noted that no one should be forced to choose between defending the country they love and being true to their authentic self.